Hey guys, Tom Barclay here, doing a reaction video to Tottenham's draw against Newcastle out in Seoul, South Korea. But let's be honest, it's not really about the game. It was supposed to be, and it still is to a big extent, about Sonny's farewell as a Tottenham player after being an absolute legend, 10 years at the club. But it has been sadly overshadowed a little bit by what looked to be a serious injury to James Maddison, his good friend James Maddison, towards the end of the game. So I'm just going to start with that and Thomas Frank's brief comments afterwards, which don't exactly sound encouraging, to be honest, unfortunately. So let's start off with what happened. So Madison came on as a substitute. He's obviously only just coming back from his injury, which he sustained against Bodo Glimt in the semi-final first leg of the Europa League back in May. He's only just coming back from it. He obviously has made he made an appearance against Arsenal off the bench, didn't he? And he's just feeling his way back into it. But then sadly, in the 83rd minute, he goes out for a challenge with fellow Newcastle sub Anthony Elanga. And to be honest, it's a routine nothing challenge. I'm not even sure he even touches Elanga. It might be gets his foot caught in the turf. Not quite sure. But he instantly knows something's wrong. And he puts his hands on his head. He starts waving over to the bench, alerting them to the issue, and then crumples in a heap. And unfortunately, he's then taken off on a stretcher. And Sonny is amongst those, along with Thomas Frank, watching on, looking very concerned as he's sort of carted off on the stretcher. Frank, after the game, I'm obviously not out there, so picking up the quotes from the likes of Ali Golds, I'm sure everyone is at the moment. Frank has said in his press conference that it does look a bad injury, and unfortunately it's the same knee as the one he sustained against Bodo Glimt, which I believe was a medial ligament injury. Definitely ligaments. I think it was a medial one. So that is really, really concerning. I mean, he's obviously a key figure in the dressing room, a key player, someone that I think a lot of fans were excited to see what Thomas Frank was going to do with him, given that he plays with a number 10 a lot of the time. And having watched a lot of Spurs' preseason so far, it felt like his creative abilities would be really, really welcome in this Frank side, whilst they've been really, really defensively resolute and impressively so in most of their games so far. They haven't exactly had a lot of spark in the attack, particularly from a sort of playmaking perspective, and we know that they were after another number 10, so even that was, wondering where that was going to leave Madison, particularly when they were pursuing Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously that's not going to happen now, but you would think if this is a serious one, that's going to be even more of a reason to pursue another number 10 if they weren't doing that already. And it's just a real shame. He's such a like infectious character with his enthusiasm, and he's just all-round quality. So let's hope it's not as bad as it looks, but the initial assessment doesn't sound great. But let's move it on to Son, and it was supposed to be all about Sonny, wasn't it? And it still is to a certain extent, apart from being the character that he is, someone who's been described by Gareth Bale as one of the nicest guy in football. I'm sure while Son will be feeling a lot of his own emotions about his own expected departure, probably his first thoughts will be to his good mate James Maddison. The pair of them are so close, and he would have been really worried, as was clear from the way he was looking on as Madison was being taken off. But the game for Son. So I suppose we should start off with another comment from Frank after the game. He said that it is very likely to be his last game, that because the move is close. That move is believed to be LAFC in the MLS in America, which I think is the move that he wants. I mean, there was obviously talk about Saudi, but he wanted to go to America, and it looks like it's going to happen. So he said himself in his press conference on Saturday how, on Saturday, how he felt that he said the club were helping him, which is really good to hear after all this time. I think he deserves it with all the service he's given Tottenham over these 10 years, which he's capped off with that fantastic Europa League victory back in May, which people will never forget, to ensure he has legendary status, which he already had, I think, to a lot of Tottenham fans, but he himself didn't feel like he did, and then joked after the game that he now can be called a legend. So he obviously dropped that I described it as a bombshell, and I think it was a bombshell press conference because even though I've been saying for a while that I felt like he was open to a move this summer, and I think it might even go back further than that, it was still quite an amazing thing to wake you up to that he had announced it, albeit probably not that surprising. I mean, there were a lot of talk about, and correct talk about, how he was never likely to go before this tour because of the commercial side of the game and how important it was to have Son playing for Tottenham out of this match. But to be honest, having watched today, yes, the finances were obviously really important, but you think he probably wanted it this way, because look at the reception he got from his most ardent fans. Like, obviously, maybe a home game might have been most fitting, but in a way, having it in Seoul might be the best way of finishing it, because those supporters, as I've talked about in that video I did the other day, detailing how much passion there is for Spurs, and obviously Son from South Korea. And if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. It's clear from every Spurs home game you go to, the amount of Korean people come over to watch him. And it was just really lovely to see him have that moment in front of all those fans that he's transformed into Tottenham Hotspur followers throughout his decade at the club. So he had that press conference. We knew it was going to be technically a friendly, but really a love-in for Son the whole time. That's what it was. I mean, before kickoff, his good friend, the actor Park Seo-joon, if I pronounced that right, apologies if I haven't, remember it being fantastic in Parasite, that Oscar-winning movie a few years ago. He gave quite a touching tribute in the centre of the pitch, obviously in Korean, but the translation part of it referred to how apparently South Korean people couldn't sleep after hearing about, after Son had that revelation that he would be leaving. The pair of them are very, very close friends, apparently. Daniel Levy was on the pitch before kickoff. He shook all the players' hands, the two teams lining up, but obviously Son in particular. And there was a nice moment when, as the two teams are doing their classic shake, if you can call it shaking hands, more just slapping hands before kickoff, what you see every game. Anthony Gordon, who's playing up front for Newcastle today and has spoken very glowingly of Son and the influence he's had on his own game, gave quite a nice little hug to Son just before the game, which sort of showed the respect that Son has throughout the game, but in this particular match today. So during the actual match itself, there was this sort of carnival atmosphere where every time Son even got close to the ball, which to be honest wasn't actually that much, but when he did, obviously the roar from the crowd was audible and definitely came through the Spurs feed that I was watching. I'm sure was very loud in the ground. The ground I've actually been at watching Son 3 years ago when Conte went there, and I know just what it's like having that kind of reception that he gets, and you could sort of hear it coming through. Remember there was a trumpet playing with the Nice One Sonny chant at one point. Hey Jude, the song by the Beatles, was played over the loudspeaker during the match, which was an interesting one, of which the lyrics, Hey Jude, were turned into Sonny, and everyone seemed to, the 66,000 fans that were in there seemed to enjoy that. And his family were up in the crowd watching on. His dad wearing this white t-shirt and often with his hands on his hips, having quite a surly expression on his face, which is just the kind of look you imagine him having based on all the stories that Son has given over the years about his dad and what a disciplinarian he is, really, but what a key part he's had in his son's development to being a world-class player and Tottenham legend, really, with all the practice he put him through as a kid, and he was there to watch on. Brennan Johnson, who scored Spurs' only goal in the game with a well-taken finish, albeit one that was slightly deflected, I think, only 4 minutes into the game. Obviously the legend from the match winner from Bilbao, scoring his first goal pre-season, paid tribute to Son with his celebration where he did the iconic Son, actually if I can do it right, there we go, Son camera pose, which Sonny seemed to enjoy very much so, lifting Johnson up with a big smile on his face. And that was the sort of theme of the day, apart from the Madison moment, the smiles and the tears as well on Son's face throughout the game. He didn't really have any chances, to be honest, unfortunately. And when he got subbed off in the 64th minute, that was his game up. But it was a really lovely moment when he came off, because I don't know if this was pre-planned, and according to Eddie Howe's comments after the game, I'm not sure it was that Newcastle would be involved in this, but basically the players created this impromptu guard of honour to honour to pay tribute to a legend leaving the pitch, and Son sort of walked through it and was given high fives and hugs by everyone, and then gave long hugs to everyone on the Spurs bench, including Madison. And there was a big rope hug at one point, which was quite emotional. And there was a moment when he then sat down to take his place on the bench, and it looked like the moment really hit him, that his Tottenham career was done, effectively. And he looked quite tearful, or at least it looked like to be a tear rolling down his cheek at that point. And then, obviously, he was watching on, and that's when the Madison moment sort of took over and really took, unfortunately, the sheen off the afternoon. And he very much looked very concerned at his sort of stricken close mate to Madison. I mean, it doesn't take much of a Google to see, sort of read quotes from James Maddison about Son Heung-min. He's just been the two of them are clearly so close, as was really made clear from Madison's interview when he did on the bus on the parade, where he talks about Son being just a great human being, which is a regular theme throughout this whole story of Son's sort of career coming to an end at Spurs, or his whole finally getting to win a trophy. I mean, Kane speaks glowingly of him. Everybody seems to. It's one of those, just universally liked players, really. And after the game, he then did a lap of honour in front of his adoring fans, and was very much emotional at that point. Tears very definitely down his face, as they were in the press conference on Saturday as well. Just clearly means so much to him, and you can really get the sense that it has been a difficult decision, but the right decision from his perspective to call time on his career now. Those are the two main moments really from the game. But regarding the rest of it, I thought Newcastle were actually quite good. It was quite a competitive match. Bear in mind they haven't got Alexander Isak, which is a story in its own right. What a disaster that is, and how that's going to play out. They had to play Gordon through the middle. I actually thought did really, really well, but obviously isn't a centre forward naturally. And there were a few moments where he could have made Spurs pay a bit more. But actually, I thought he did really well. He actually finished one chance off really nicely, but was flagged offside. The goal that Newcastle scored in the 38th minute came through Harvey Barnes. I think it's probably a bit harsh to blame it on Antonin Kinski, who was in goal. I think it was just an absolute banger of a finish from Barnes. He was a really good player. I mean, Spurs were very much looking at both Madison and Barnes the season Leicester got relegated. And in the end, Barnes went to Newcastle, Madison went to Tottenham. It was both Newcastle and Spurs were looking at both players. And you can see why. It was a brilliant finish at his near post for a player who ended last season really, really well. Newcastle maybe even edged it overall, but I guess it wasn't really about the result, was it? But a good run out, I suppose, for the team. Aside from Son and Madison, we're getting nearer to pre-season. We're to the season. We're 10 days away from the Super Cup. Got Bayern on Thursday, which I'm going to Munich for that game. So I'll do a video from Munich for that one. Obviously it's 2 weeks till. Just under 2 weeks till the season opener against Burnley. So good fitness. They looked quite sharp. They will by then have, I'm very sure, we'll have João Palhinha to add to the ranks. They'll be losing Son, and we'll wait to see on Madison, but they will have Palhinha as well to add some more steel to that midfield. Although I have to say, the first half in particular, I thought Archie Gray, who played there, was one of his best performances so far in a Spurs shirt. So it shows some really nice feet at times. Really good movements, and few little dribbles, and some nice passing and nice vision, really, from a player that's been so much excitement about, but hasn't really got regular minutes in his preferred position. So maybe it's an example of how he's growing under Frank, or just having more belief going forward. It'll be interesting, isn't it? I mean, Ben Davies has started playing again at left back. Feels like Frank is very much picking players in their natural positions so far. So let's see if that stays that way. You do wonder when the season starts and he starts picking his regulars most weeks. If Paulinho is coming in, you'd expect it probably be him and Bentancur, and then a number 10 who would have been Madison, but who knows now. Obviously Bergval's pushing as well. So Gray may lack for minutes in midfield, and I wonder at fullback, we're still waiting with Destiny Udogie, but you've got Spence, you've got Ben Davies who can play there, and you've got Gray there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't go for a left back. Obviously, you've got Spence and Porro at right back. So maybe his minutes again seem more likely, from a starting perspective anyway, out wide, but in the fullback positions. But we'll see. There was quite a feisty South American battle at one point in the 41st minute where Romero, who else is it going to be, went in for a sort of stereotypically quite wild tackle on Bruno Guimaraes as he was just outside the box. Guimaraes sort of rode that challenge, got into the box, was looking to get, after laying it off, was looking to sort of receive the ball again. Romero basically shoved him to the ground, and Guimaraes didn't take kindly to it at all. Got up, put his hands round Romero's neck, which I'm sure he would have been sent off in the Premier League. You just can't do that. Cameras would have picked it up, and he would have gone. But obviously this was a friendly, so that one was glossed over. But there was a bit of Brazil versus Argentina, a bit of extra spice added into the first half. But that was pretty much it, I think, for most of the game. Not a lot else to write home about. But obviously, two big headline grabbing incidents. One being the whole event of Son, and the other being the Madison injury. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're wanting to hear my thoughts on Sonny and where I think he sort of ranks in Premier League history and what player he has been for Tottenham, go back and check out that video I did on Saturday. That sort of says it all. But as regards pre-season plans, it was looking quite good for Spurs, but that Madison injury has definitely caused a massive headache, and I guess Spurs fans just need to hope it's not as bad as it looks. But Frank's initial comments don't suggest that there should be much optimism on that front. But we'll see. Cheers, guys.